Hello, my fine friends. Welcome back to Destination Discourse. I'm your host, Stuart Butler, joined today with Adam Montgomery Stoker. How are you, sir?
Montgomery, I like that. I'm good. I got a new middle name. I'm feeling fresh.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to guess over each episode what your middle name is. I know it's an M, right? But I don't know actually what it is. So we're just going to go
Yeah.
until we get there, or until I forget, or I get bored. One of the three will happen.
And or we go through the cycle where you get bored and then you bring it back because we've actually seen that before as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and especially when we play episodes out of order now, because we got a little
Yeah.
backlog. So there's no continuity. Like the head canon of this show is just all over the place. But that's okay. Adam, we haven't recorded in a while, like on computers. We've done a couple of live sessions in the last few weeks, but we haven't done one. But you're looking a little different here. You're
Yeah.
looking more
Well, and
vertical than horizontal.
yeah, it's funny you
I'm not
mentioned
saying you slim down
computers.
because obviously not, but
Obviously not. Uh, no, I'm having a wild morning so far. So I last night I was supposed to fly back from One West Tourism Alliance Martech Summit. And on the way to Salt Lake, we got just to where you can kind of see Salt Lake. And then we felt the plane turn. And so they came on the intercom and they said, there's high winds in Salt Lake. We don't have enough fuel to circle. So we're going to go to Vegas and refuel. So we went to Vegas, sat on the tarmac forever, refueled. I got home about 2 a.m. And then when I came to turn on my computer this morning, I'm getting the Apple logo and nothing else, and it's been about 25 minutes. So I unfortunately that also means I hate to say it, and it brings me pain to say it. There may not be a jingle today.
oh, I think that's just sacrilege, and you're going to have to sing it. I think
Yeah.
that's the only option. Or maybe one of our guests can. So we're going to introduce our guest now. We have returning guest to the show, Matt Stiker, and then we have new friend to the show, new Desty, Katy Livingston. How are you guys doing today?
Doing
Doing
great. Thanks
great,
for
man.
having us.
Yeah.
We're
Psyched to be here
excited to
again,
have you.
guys.
Yeah, and we invited you to come on the show. You'd written a cool article on LinkedIn that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And Matt, I know I got to call you out, my friend. We saw you at Marcom Summit in Cleveland last week where we were doing Destination Discourse Live, and we had a word cloud at the end. And Adam and I had planned ahead, and we said, there's some risk with having user-generated content on a live screen, but we like everyone in the room is going to be adults. They're going to behave themselves, right? Little did we remember that Matt Stiker was in the room. So the question was something along the lines of, what's the biggest threat to DMOs? And obviously, with the word
One
cloud,
word. One word.
one
Mhm.
word that's the biggest threat. And so the more a word is put into the system, the larger the word gets. And all of a sudden, the word Stuart just appears in great big letters multiple
Mm.
times. So thanks
What
for
was the
that, Matt.
problem with that, Stuart? I actually thought that was an insightful response, and I'm curious what your problem is with
Oh
that.
man,
It
my issue is I'm trying to be stealth, man. If I am a threat to the industry, I was meant to be doing it undercover, but he just blew my cover, so
this is
it's fine.
this is look, this is accusation without substantiation.
This is fair. This is fair. No, I thought it was funny, and then other people got involved, and I think Corey got called out. Like he ended up being named above me, so I think it was fun. People had a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you for being there in the audience. I don't know if that episode is going to get published before or after this episode. So again, our canon's all out of whack. But thank you for being there. It was a lot of fun at DI Marcom.
It was truly one of the better content sessions of the conference. The conference was really good, but that one really stood out for me.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Shucks, you have to say that because we invited you on the show, but we appreciate it. We'll pretend you meant it. All right, so Adam, how do you want to handle this, man? Because it is that time for the greatest segment in all of entertainment. You
Yeah,
gonna sing, or are we just gonna jump into what the news article is?
I think it's only appropriate that I give it a try. Okay.
Dang.
I think
Okay,
so.
Okay, ready?
take it away, Maestro.
And I got to kind of get the Alvin and the Chipmunks voice too as I get this. So, gonna tell you what you need. It's this news Galaxy 2. There we go. That's it. We did it. I
Perfect.
should have done it on the piano.
That's the end of the show, man. Like, not just this episode. I think, period.
The
That
end of
is,
the show as we know it.
We
we
jumped the
just
shark.
we jumped the shark 100%. That is official, man. I wasn't ready for that, man. I like sleep deprived Adam. This is a treat.
My inhibitions are completely gone because I've gotten no sleep.
Yeah. Wow. What if our audience decides that they want to like a live sing song every episode now? I mean, you
Um,
may have just put yourself in a corner.
yeah, I'll put my Venmo in the show notes, and if it gets high enough, then yeah, sure, I'll sing it every time.
Do we have a number? I'd chip in a
I
few
bet
bucks for that.
yeah, I bet it's lower than you think.
Probably so. All right. Well, let's get into the meat. So Stu's News today is about the comments coming out from OpenAI about ChatGPT 5.4 that's right on the horizon. You know, one of the things ChatGPT's done, and I think this is smart, is they're going to iterative updates now, trying to roll out monthly updates instead of these big, every 6 or 8 month updates, because I think they've disappointed folks and it's affected, them a lot in the past when they haven't quite delivered on a promise. But I will say 5.4 is really interesting. There's a couple of things about it that are coming out that I think are going to be game changers. One, the context window is a lot bigger, like 1 million tokens versus the current one, which is 400,000. What that means to the average person is you can basically put in 2.5 times as much stuff in the prompt that you used to, and it can actually retain it. It can keep order of it. It's going to remember. You know how right now when you're having a conversation, it's following along nicely, and all of a sudden it takes a hard right turn and forgets some of the stuff you talked about at the beginning of the conversation. It's going to eliminate a lot of that. So it's going to be able to continue a conversation for longer without problems. The other thing is it's going to be able to do really deep reasoning at a longer level. And why that's important is agentic AI. Agentic AI right now is running into some problems when you send it off to go do complicated tasks over several hours. Sometimes it gets derailed or it can't think long enough and it runs into roadblocks. This should eliminate a lot of that, or at least dramatically improve that. And then the other thing they're talking about with a lot of the new AI models that are coming out is they're looking like they're going to be significantly better when it comes to reducing the number of hallucinations and just making stuff up. So this is a good one. OpenAI has been behind Gemini for a little while, behind some of the other models for a little while, but I think this is one where they may temporarily at least jump ahead. But why it's important to me is I think this could begin to unlock agentic in a more tangible, real way for the average consumer that's getting frustrated with its lack of ability right now. So, Adam, what's your response to this?
I think it's really interesting. As far as, because I try to think for our audience, for our average DMO user, I honestly don't think this is going to be a very significant change, right? Like, I don't think this update is going to impact our average DMO user a lot. The thing that I would encourage our desties to remember is that these updates are consistently happening. And the trick is to continue to use it and incorporate it into your daily activities. And if it hallucinates once, remember, an update like this is going to come out every few weeks or every month at this point. And so I just think it's really critical that people recognize that this constant, and you said this, Stuart, when we first started the show, and I thought it was, one of the few smart things you said in the time that we've been doing this show.
There
You
it is.
said, you said, AI today is the dumbest it will ever be. And I think that's really true because the user experience is continuing to get better and better and better. And I think it's really important that destinations embrace the fact that AI is going to be a part of every activity that we do. And the way to stay on top of it is to use it and not get discouraged when it doesn't do exactly what you want. And I'll probably end it there because I want to definitely get Matt and oh my gosh, Katy. Katy, I'm so sorry. To get Matt and Katy in here. I just think it's critical that we trust that these updates are going to continue and we incorporate it into our daily lives and we will evolve with the platform.
Yeah, Katy, you have a response to that, including that he forgot your name?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that after the show. Yeah.
I'm on my phone.
No worries. Yeah, that's really interesting. As someone who uses AI a lot as kind of a brainstorming partner, I'm really excited about the opportunities that this might unlock as far as, right now, AI has a really hard time dealing with time. And by that, I mean, I can be having a long conversation with it over the course of days or weeks or months, and it seems like it can't really keep track of, oh, when was the last time we talked? Or maybe there is new information now since the last time we talked about this topic. So I'm curious about the implications of that, which I think will be quite interesting. But yeah, I think this idea of like you said, Adam, it could be subtle for most typical users, but it's just going to keep kind of getting better and getting more honed in and more kind of sharpened, which is a good thing. It's just for, as somebody in the creative industry, we are constantly trying to refigure out every day how do we incorporate AI in the smartest way, in the most effective way? How do we stay on top of this as a tool? How do we use it as a tool to build on our concepts versus have a concept for us, type of thing? So
Yeah.
should be really interesting.
Cool. Matt, you have a take?
Yeah. The idea of iterative updates is obviously not a new thing that, since sort of dawn of technology, that's been happening. I look back at early Microsoft Windows and the sort of regular constant updating of that. AOL and the dial-up, even the Apple iOS system, is updated on a regular basis. So if we're looking at it like that, this isn't surprising. This isn't necessarily like as a construct, it isn't necessarily new. The thing that might be interesting, and I don't know if this provides a segue, guys, or not, but that's interesting to me is that we oftentimes think about creativity and engineering as two completely different worlds. But the fact is, you talk to any great creatives, talk to Katy Livingston. Katy Livingston will say she's never done with a concept. Never ever done. Like you have an air date, and so you have to ship it. But Katie's like, wait a minute, I've got to make one more change. I've got to do one more thing. And so a next iteration, like she's constantly wanting to iterate on that creatively. It's the exact same thing that's going on the tech side. There's sort of this constant iteration from wanting to improve, wanting to perfect, wanting it to be better, which I think is a really interesting sort of relationship and parallel between those two.
Yeah.
Can I give you guys? Oh, go ahead, Stuart.
Well, I was
give
going to
your
say,
thoughts.
I think it was inevitable that they would go to this sort of more iterative method, not just because of the backlash they've gotten when they haven't delivered on bigger promises, but also just the rate of change is accelerating. And so what they were taking 6 months to do is now taking them a month. So it just it makes sense. I'm going to actually contradict myself a little bit from what Adam said in the beginning of when we started the show.
It's because I said it was smart.
Yeah. Well, AI. I think AI in general is heading in the direction of getting smarter, but there's certainly been times where an update has happened and it gets less smart. Like it does certain things it was doing well, less well, right? They've sort of focused on the training side on something different where, we've seen it be more sycophantic and less sycophantic. We've seen it hallucinate more and hallucinate less. So I think there's going to be sort of steps up and down a little bit, but the general direction is going to be improvement. I think the message to the audience, to the Desties listening, though, is just because you tried something once with AI and it didn't work out, or you got frustrated, or you ran into a roadblock, don't assume that that's still the case today. So you've got to be constantly trying this in paying attention to what the updates are and what they do better, and then going back and retrying that. Because at some point, that thing you tried 6 months ago will actually work really well with AI and will make your life better. So
can I give you a real world example of that?
Yeah.
So I've tried over the last 4 years since AI came out multiple times to kind of try to build a product end to end. And I've always been able to get it about 90% of the way there. And then the last 10% is just brutal. Like you just can't get there. And it's like plugging holes in a dam. You give it one prompt and it fixes that. And then another hole opens in the dam. And when I got to DI Marcom Summit, I walked into my hotel room and I saw a print on the wall. It was the Hotel Cleveland, which is a really cool hotel. Had a great time there. But there was a print on the wall of the patent of the first faucet with a single handle that was ever made. And I looked at that and I just thought to myself, this is cool, but my wife would never put it in our home because it doesn't match her kind of interior design decor style, right? It was more of an urban style, I would say, and she's more like farmhouse, vintage type. And so I thought to myself, what if I could leverage AI to scrape the U.S. patent database, grab all the ones that would be good vintage prints and build a website that's a catalog of those. And they're all designed specifically. I gave it the recommendation of being a cross between Magnolia and Studio McGee, the two Target lines that are really popular right
Mm-hmm.
now. And in 48 hours at DI Marcom Summit, I built an end-to-end product. AI told me the print fulfillment partner that I could and should use called Printify that would actually fulfill on those prints once people did them. And I went back and forth with AI on the image style and the website and built it all in Replit, the website builder. And it's up. It's at parchmentandprogress.com. It's entirely just like a project I wanted to test and see what I could do. And it's incredible. I just ordered my first print off of there, and I'm excited to see what shows
That's
up.
amazing, dude. Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah, super cool.
That's really cool. And a shameless plug, Adam. That's really on brand for you too. That's
You know
great.
what? Don't buy anything from there. Okay?
No,
I
go
just wanted
buy
to
it.
see
I
if I
want
could
commission
do it.
though. 10%
A
of
little
all
free
proceeds go to the
marketing.
show.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. That's really cool. And if Adam can do it, then anyone can do it. That's all I
Bingo.
would say. So
Bingo.
Stuart,
there it is.
Stuart, you're probably familiar with Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns. This is totally geeking me out, but do you know about that?
Okay. I'm not familiar with it. Go for it.
It's basically exactly what you just said, that there's this supposition that things improve in a linear fashion, that one leads to two, that two leads to three, that
Yeah.
three leads to four. But in technology, what Kurzweil was saying was that that is actually an exponential growth. So one leads to two, but two leads to four, and
Yeah.
four leads to eight, and eight leads to 16, because the acceleration improves or increases the deeper that you get into it. It's really fascinating how it's not slow. It really accelerates.
Yeah. And it accelerates things that are slow, like Adam, into being able to create these amazing things. So I'm done. I'm done taking shots at you today, Adam.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, you got to put $1 in the swear jar if it happens again. Then,
All
okay.
right. Totally fair. Totally fair. All right. So let's jump into the topic. I think I was excited when I read your article. You guys are obviously at Madden are great thought leaders in general. You're willing to put your necks out there and actually put content that is challenging the status quo. And so I'm just going to hand it. I don't know, Kate, if you want to take off and sort of give us your thesis, what the problem is that you see, and then we can chat a little bit about it and poke at it and see if we can solve it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, what we're talking about today is, a lot of destination marketing kind of looks the same. It can really kind of look homogenous and sound all the same, look all the same, feel all the same, which kind of leads to a lot of it just feeling kind of unremarkable and not standing out, not having a point of view. So, in a sense, it feels gentrified. Why is this? How is this? How do we get to this point? Nobody sets out to make boring work. So how does this happen? But we're going to talk about, how do we get here? Why is this bad for business in a lot of senses? And what can we do about it?
Yeah.
Just to kind of level set, like with talking about gentrification, you'll hear that word a lot today. Obviously gentrification has a lot of like economic, political, and human implications that are kind of outside what we're going to talk about today. But in this case, we're really focusing on the aesthetics of gentrification, the feeling of gentrification in cities, the way that it's kind of started to sand off the edges of what makes individual cities really unique, and the ways that kind of this, inoffensive architecture and city planning have kind of begun to make every city in the USA feel like, every city in the USA. And so what are maybe those implications with destination marketing itself?
Love it. Love it. Matt, is there anything you want to add to that?
Katie, as we were developing this, Katie came up with this idea of putting the definitions sort of side by side on a slide. And
Yeah.
so we've got on one hand of a slide that says, look, definition of destination gentrification is the process of cities becoming more homogenized in look, feel, and experience. The
Mm-hmm.
gradual removal of distinguishing characteristics within and among cities. And if you take that and then you start to think about destination marketing
Mm-hmm.
gentrification, you go, the process of advertising becoming more homogenized in look, feel, and messaging, the
Mm-hmm.
gradual removal of distinguishing characteristics within and among creative thinking, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you've got destinations around the world that on every corner there's a Starbucks or there's a McDonald's or there's a Gap or a Coach or a Burberry, and everyone starts to have those same things, guess what? You've made your destination automatically less unique And therefore, what is the story that you're going to tell around it?
Yeah. And I've seen you guys write about this before, how you sort of poke fun about when people are selling their destination, they're saying the same things, right? They're saying like there's these off the beaten path things. We got these new breweries. We got like, and it really manifests in my mind. The worst example, the most egregious, is in our TV commercials, like our video spots, because every single one you could replace
Yeah.
the logo at the end
Yeah.
with any destination. And we
Yep.
we have a game, a bingo game here in the office when we're seeing someone else's, and often they're like winning awards and stuff. But I've not seen a DMO ad, a video ad in my 5 years here that doesn't have someone riding something. Like they're either riding a horse or a jet ski or a bicycle or something. There's always someone riding, and there's always someone smiling and eating and chinking a glass or drinking something and looking happy, but they're not telling stories and they're not really saying anything unique about their destination at
Yep.
all. So,
Yep.
Adam, you want to pile on the DMOs as we're sort of criticizing ourselves here?
Well, I think it's important to talk a little bit about why that's happened, because I
Yeah.
don't think it's been intentional for any of the parties involved. And while I've definitely spoken out a lot against the homogeneity that's happening in the destination space, it's actually a result of what I call marketing by committee, because you actually have brilliant marketing teams all over the destination space that will present a creative concept to their board, and the board is afraid of it, or the
Yes.
board rejects it. And so I don't believe that it's a lack of creative individuals in the destination marketing space, nor do I think that's what you're implying. But I want to make sure that our desties that are listening understand we recognize the challenges
Yep.
that keep us from having the exciting and creative campaigns that they need to have. And so I don't know. I just think it's important we acknowledge that before we go any farther on piling on.
Yeah.
Well, can I push back on you a little bit? Because
Sure.
I don't know that it's the committee that's the problem. I think it's the fear of taking a risk and getting called out that's the problem.
Oh,
Because
so
I
fear
don't
of the
know that.
committee.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. I don't personally. I don't think the DMO should be doing creative conversations in ideation with the board. I don't think that's the role of the board at all. Period. They shouldn't be involved in the. I think you've got to share results and share strategy, but I think the creative execution, I that's not the role of the board, in my opinion. I think we've made the mistake of using them that way in the past, and we can get buy-in on the front end on a creative campaign, but at the end of the day, we're going to get held accountable on the impact that it's having, unless you're doing something so out there that it's going to create other problems. You look like you don't agree with me, Adam.
Well, I think you're suggesting that I was intimating a active, like I go present my creative to the board, and that's more figurative in my mind, because what's actually happening is, if the board may not be involved in the creative decisions, but if there's something that goes out that they believe is either too risky or off brand, the board gets involved or the stakeholders get involved.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
you're
elected
right.
officials
It's more,
probably more, right? It's
Yeah.
probably more elected officials we're scared
Residents
of than
too.
it is.
Residents
It's-
too,
Yeah.
for sure.
it's
residents.
fear of the committee instead of saying it's the board's fault. It's fear
Yeah.
of the committee.
Yeah, that's fair.
Stuart, you make a really compelling point, though. One of the slides that we had in the deck, one of the quotes that we use. Are you guys familiar with Aaron Sorkin? He wrote The West Wing, and he's
Yeah.
just an unbelievable writer. In the film The American President, Michael Douglas, who's playing Andrew Shepard, uses a line that we thought was really apropos for exactly sort of this conversation. He says, "I was so busy keeping my job that I forgot to do my job."
Yeah.
Right? It's sort of a fascinating way of like pulling apart that exact argument that you guys are making.
Yeah. That might be the title of this episode. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what our industry needs to hear right now.
Yeah,
For sure.
For sure.
Adam, to your point, I think it's not for lack of talent. There are so many incredibly creative and smart people in this industry. I think yeah, it can be a little scary to step outside,
Yeah.
a little bit and kind of do
Yeah.
something a little bit different. And it's a little bit like you know, taking the training wheels off your bike a little bit. You might wobble for sure. You might fall off the bike once or twice. And as an agency working really closely with our wonderful CMOs, like working hand in hand, we have to have that backing of rationale of why we're doing something different. We have to show the results, measurable statistics, but also brand perception studies, surveys, things like that to really help support our DMOs to kind of navigate some of those complexities that you were talking about with
Yep.
stakeholders and
Can I ask
brands.
you guys a question? Because I'm on the DMO side. I'm actually outnumbered today with agencies, and
Which is
so
great.
yeah, it's cool. It's fine, Adam. It's fine. Just let it go. Um, the relationship between you guys and your clients. Do you feel like where's the burden and where's the problem right now? Like, because I get DMOs are frightened to take risks, right? We've sort of articulated that. Um, is your role as an agency to push us out of our comfort zone a little bit, or is your job to execute as requested by the DMO? Because the DMO is probably never going to be the one pushing the envelope, right? So is the onus on the agencies? And I'm not putting blame on you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh,
asking a
sure.
question.
Sure. Let me just challenge one thing because Adam, it looked like you wanted to jump in there,
Oh,
but
I
let me.
wanted to hear from you guys
Yeah.
first, but I
Okay.
definitely want to chime in.
I think, Stuart, in certain cases, we do have DMO partners who are pushing, who are
Mhm.
demanding, who are expecting. You and I haven't quote unquote worked together yet, but Visit Myrtle Beach is definitively pushing itself and its agency partners to do new things. Josh Albrecht in Milwaukee is another one who is
Mhm.
constantly pushing us to do new things. Patrick Harrison in Tampa, again, like there are way more than a handful of leaders that are out there, not just talking that push me talk, but actually really walking it. There's an awful lot that are saying, yeah, I want something new, and then pull back when they're afraid, right? When that fear sets in, like you guys were
Mhm.
talking about. But otherwise, I think there really are a handful that are sort of leading and guiding into this territory that Katy was talking about earlier of you've got to be prepared to step out of the safe in order to benefit from the way that people are engaging with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
Adam,
hear
you want to
Katie's
answer that?
thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to your question, Stuart, like we as agencies, we need to remember to push ourselves too, and to be that support, to be that collaborator with the CMOs at the DMOs level, like
Yeah.
to kind of we need to remember to push ourselves and also not get bogged down in the day to day, remembering that. And so that's part of one of the things that we kind of use at Madden is this idea of code. Like it's kind of almost like a litmus test of like, is the work we're doing compelling, ownable, differentiated, and emotional? Because we know that emotional piece of the puzzle is really going to kind of help drive that kind of memory, implant that memory, have that recall later when people are ready to book. So, just kind of creating some processes for us as an agency to remember that we are there to be that collaborator with you all and to help keep evolving and keep kind of pushing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Stuart, you asked, what should the dynamic be?
Mhm.
Should the agency be pushing DMOs? And the answer to that question is emphatically yes.
Mhm.
Agencies should absolutely. If you are pushing your agency, then why do you have an agency? The whole point of the agency client dynamic is to be stretched beyond what your internal team can do on their own. But there's a problem, and the problem with the agency client dynamic in the destination marketing space is that we do not set up the relationship from the get-go to be conducive to the necessary dynamic for success. The
Mhm.
RFP process structures it as an order-taking relationship in a lot of cases, and it results in starting the engagement off where you get the full plan from the agency without the necessary strategy exercise that needed to happen because the agency went through with half the context in order to put the RFP together, right? And
Mhm.
so that's one of the issues that I see. The other is I've seen agencies that push clients beyond their comfort zone, and maybe I may or may not have experienced this at some point. when you push a client that doesn't want to be pushed, you get fired for an agency that will stay in the client's comfort zone.
Yep.
And so those are the two reasons that I think that dynamic is somewhat broken in the destination marketing space. But a warning for both agencies and destinations, because this is not to either party individually. If we don't figure out how to fix that dynamic to where the agencies are pushing the destinations to progress and the destinations are more comfortable with the agencies pushing towards that progress, it's going to be really difficult for either party to be successful in the long run. And I would really like to see everybody push harder in that direction to the way it should be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'll add one sort of fun piece of context. Katy and I were involved last year in a pitch for an East Coast destination client, which shall remain nameless, right, to sort of protect the innocent. But they were one of the destinations that had sort of a vested interest in the 250th anniversary of the founding of the country. And while they didn't say in the RFP, we really want you to challenge us to exactly what Katy was just saying, we came back in and we challenged them. And one of the things that we brought them, I think it's okay to say this, one of the things that we brought them is we proposed a 6-episode TV series, sort of biopic, not unlike This Is Spinal Tap, built around the founding fathers as being the original boy band. And it was hilarious. Thomas Jefferson on lead guitar, George Washington was the lead singer, issues with the drummer who was Benedict Arnold, who you were threatening was going to leave. Like the whole thing was built around some level of historical context and also just super, super fun way to engage people in the conversation. And Adam, kind of to your point, what they came back and said was like, equal parts like really frustrating, but also like relieving. They came back and said, you guys are too fun for us. Yeah. Like we would never get this through our stakeholders. You guys are too fun for us. So like, if we're hearing that as an agency, like I still wear that as a badge, right? Like that is an awesome thing to hear. And honestly, kudos to them, because if they come back to us and then they beat us down for like, oh, sorry, we can't be this fun, we're just going to be miserable the whole time.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. It's such a creative idea. I really like it. I wish we were in a better position to leverage something like that. But I'll tell you from our experience, I think it's fair to say, I've been here almost 5 years at Visit Myrtle Beach, and we've pushed the envelope more than I'd say the average DMO for sure. We've launched multiple TV shows, podcasts. We've done some TV commercials that were very avant-garde. We've done a lot, and along the way, we've really tried to get buy-in from our stakeholders. And we did along the way. Like I think at the time we launched Traveling the Spectrum, Chef Swap, any of these projects, everyone was cheering and behind us. But as they were released, we're in a boom. It was post-COVID, Myrtle Beach recovered great. Everyone was making a ton of money. And now, the industry is struggling a little bit. I mean, you look at the numbers, so fewer people are traveling, more people have debt. There's a pressure on economy travel and the ADR that they're able to achieve. And so, for a lot of destinations, especially beach destinations, last year wasn't up, and even a lot of other destinations. I mean, look at the Vegas numbers, right? Last year was a slog for a lot of destinations. So as we sort of turn into more of a struggle, the permission to experiment has really eroded, in our market and others. And so it's hard because a lot of that is seen as almost frivolous by some folks, even though it was effective, even though it was immeasurable, even though it achieved its objectives. They see it as not core to the mission and not what we're supposed to be doing, in quotes. So it's a challenge. I would say today in 2026, Visit Myrtle Beach is less experimental than it was 2 years ago. And I don't like that. But I sort of understand the reality. So even though we're going to continue to push the envelope, we're probably going to talk about it, do less of it, and also talk about it less locally and focus more on what we're talking about being the block and tackle.
I don't know that I like the talk about it less approach, Stuart. I actually think that if you don't get your stakeholders or board members or whoever the problem children are to get on board with where you're going, it's a ticking time bomb, and sooner or later you're going to push the envelope or not push the envelope, and either way it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, well, I
Agreed.
tell you what,
Agreed.
let me restate it because it's not that we're not talking about it. Let's say we're recalibrating the amount we're talking about it relative to the other stuff. So like back in, I'd say 2023, let's say, when less than 10% of our budget was on owned media, 90% of what we were talking about was this owned media stuff, right? Because it was sexy and it was cool and people were energized. But we weren't talking about the block and tackle stuff, which was still 90% of what we were doing, right? So what we've done is recalibrate. So yes, we're still saying, hey, it's not like we're hiding stuff from people. What we've done is just recalibrate to say, okay, the effort we're putting into this is relative to the amount we're talking about this stuff. Because what people heard was all we're doing is this
Mm.
fancy TV stuff. They didn't know, or they didn't really register that we were doing the block and tackle stuff. So that's where we got criticism.
Yeah, and I think Stuart, you make a great point. I think creative risk, it doesn't have to be $1 million investment.
Right.
Creative risk can be a micro moment of kind of pushing the envelope. It can be playing around with voice on social or, utilizing a small experimental budget for something, kind of a small digital campaign. Like you can still push that creative envelope even when it feels a little bit tighter budget wise.
Yeah, Katie, you
Yeah,
talked in the
no question.
presentation about the Tampa airport and the work that they're doing on social that is just remarkable because it's not the sort of typical, here's how an airport does social, where they're just simply announcing, we have new flights coming in or whatever. They're really crafting a voice and a point of view, and I feel like that's an opportunity that a lot of destinations are just simply missing out on because they're just simply talking about the new hotel or the new brewery or the new attraction the same way that everybody else is.
Yeah, Katie, share with us what Tampa's doing because it is
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, their social media team is fantastic. I think what's really interesting about their specifically Instagram is what I follow for the Tampa airport, but they really have a distinct point of view. They have a distinctive voice. In the sense of you don't expect a airport authority to have a really playful, clever, almost snarky tone like they do on social media. They recently, over the past couple days, have officially outlawed pajamas at the Tampa airport, and I saw that reposted many, many times. I saw it picked up
Yeah.
by national media, and all that was some really smart social media posting. So it's these kind
Katie, do you think that post ultimately influenced the transportation secretary to say he doesn't want people wearing pajamas on
I
flights
do think
anymore?
so. I think it had something to do with that. Yep, yep. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it's funny.
Yep.
They're real influences. But yeah, they're posting all kinds of funny stuff. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do though, right? You've got to have the right team and consistency. Like there's a lot of people try that. And Wendy's was the first poster child of this, right? They did a phenomenal job with it. They sort of played this role and had a strong position as your sort of annoying younger sister, sort of bratty and a little precocious. And so others have tried this and not done well. I mean, we've tried it a little bit, but we haven't done consistently, and
I, I wish
um,
I felt like I saw more DMOs trying it, Stuart. I really don't. We
yeah.
we we tried it even in San Francisco, and I think we had some success with some really fun stuff. But to your point, if you've got a lack of consistency and a lack of like real team commitment to it, then it just sort
Mhm.
of falls away.
Yeah. And I think you guys in San Francisco inspired us, in a way. You positioned it one time as being a citizen of the world, I think
Yep,
is how you sort of
yep,
framed it with San
yep,
Francisco.
yep.
And I remember when we had the
Oh,
Chinese
I
spy
know exactly
balloon,
what you're going to say, and
well, the
this is
Chinese spy balloon was over
brilliant. Yeah,
Myrtle Beach, right? In that it was sort of our Oreo moment where we had to do something.
so
And
good.
so we tweeted something really flippant, like, has anyone lost a big balloon? Yeah, I don't even remember the exact tweet, but it did pretty well, right? But it was a
Right.
one-off. Like we weren't
Mhm.
consistent. We didn't claim, okay, this is now going to be our sort of slightly sarcastic, slightly flippant, commentator on world events. But it's tough, right? Because if you want to be a citizen of the world and be relevant, you got to take some big risks. Like, what would you do now with all that's going on in the world, right? Would you tackle gas prices increasing, or would you tackle a war in Iran, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's it's tough, right? So I
Yeah.
get it. So
Sure.
I think we've defined the
Yeah.
problem really well. We sort of talked to justified the problem really well. So let's get prescriptive. Like, what's the solution, guys? Where do you see, what would you like to see DMOs and agencies, the whole industry do differently or do better, and how can we accomplish that?
Before we get to the prescription, Stuart, can I just make one more point here? And that's that at the One West Tourism Martech Summit, my presentation was on the difference between a challenger destination and incumbent
Yeah.
destination, and the difference in their marketing strategy, what it should be. And the
Yeah.
reality is that the incumbent has the luxury of playing defense. The incumbent has the luxury of playing it safe and protecting market share instead of trying to acquire market share. But the challenger is not going to win on budget. The challenger is not going to win by copying the incumbent's defensive strategy. The only way for a challenger to win is to do something different enough that it gets attention, just like the spy balloon tweet that you were talking about, and so on and so forth. And so I think the first thing that we have to do with the stakeholders that are involved is make sure they understand whether we're the challenger or the incumbent, and let them know that our marketing plan is going to be according to which one we are. And I think that's just critical to get everybody on the same page.
I would argue we're all challenges, maybe with the exception of one or two destinations. But I think even Myrtle Beach, which is the most visited domestic beach destination, we're a challenger. We're trying to get relevance. We're trying to take market share. We're trying to position ourselves as unique, you know. So I think there's no question we're a challenge. And if, as one of the most well-funded DMOs, I think for us to be considered a challenger, it's hard to me to argue anyone's not a challenger.
So then nobody's allowed to play defense.
They shouldn't be. No one should be. No one's resting on their laurels right now and saying, I've got enough tourism and I don't want any more. I mean, maybe a couple of small destinations that have a distribution problem, but I think no one should be resting on their laurels right now, just assuming people are going to show up.
It may be less that though, Stuart. It may be less resting on your laurels and more coming from a place of confidence. So one of the things that Katy and I did in our presentation was talk about brands outside destination, right? It's very easy for us to get super myopic and super into the world that we all live in day to day. But I think, Stuart, maybe, sort of directly to answer the question, like, what can we do? One of the things that we can do is we can start stepping out of destination marketing and think more broadly about marketing. So Dan Janes this week was at the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers. It's a really, really different crowd than what's at One West or what's at DI Marcom or whatever. It's Wendy's and it's Coca-Cola and it's Chevrolet and it's all of the big guys. And they are talking about a lot of the same challenges that we all have, right? And so like Coca-Cola, going back to that point, Coca-Cola, anytime Pepsi would take a shot at it, Coca-Cola would just like, you're not worth my time, And so like, I sort of hate to frame up any destination like that. But if I think about California, if I think about Vegas, if I think about Orlando, like they're sitting in this place where they are quote unquote resting on their laurels, just in the sense that, you know what, we have an unbelievable product. People keep coming to us. We're just going to keep talking about that, as opposed to everybody else that sort of has to get scrappy around the edges,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Agreed.
And zeroing back in, I guess, on the DMO space, like we touched on this, there really is, you see kind of a formulaic approach sometimes of features and benefits, eat, stay, play, that type of thing. You can do all these things, of course you can, but can your competitor down the road say the same thing? Do they all also have a restaurant and a brewery and a cool show to see? So what's really going to differentiate, and I think is kind of the crux of what I think is the best prescription for this, is what's the essence? What's the feeling of what makes your destination special?
Yeah.
What's that emotion? Vacation planning is personal and emotional. It's not logical. Getting people to act isn't about convincing them into a rational argument about, because of X, book at Y. Nobody's choosing destinations because, the number of hotels or the number of the competitors' hotels. They're not necessarily traveling for amenities. Like, of course, cost is a big consideration for folks. But beyond that, they're really traveling for euphoria, anticipation, feeling expansive, having connection with their loved ones or themselves or nature. So it's really this emotion, I think, starting with that emotion, digging in deep to pinpoint that emotion within our audience. And then they're gonna, think about you later when they are, maybe planning a vacation, and then they're gonna act. So I
Yeah.
think it's that emotional pull.
And I think there's a new sort of motivator that's over-indexing right now. We talked on the show before about how I feel like the brand of the destination is less valuable than the experience of the individual experiences. We've seen the cost of music and live sports and other stuff going up. And I think the status people get from being a part of something, and we're going to see that with the World Cup this year. We certainly saw it with things like Taylor Swift in the last couple of years. But
Mhm.
I think the individual experiences that people are traveling to specifically go do and that status that they get, that's a part of the value proposition now that I think we need to sort of leverage more as DMOs. And so
Mhm.
instead of talking about come to Myrtle Beach because of the hotel rooms and the 2,000 restaurants and stuff, let's get really granular and microscopic about the individual experiences. And the sum of that is what our destination is. But I think you're right. The differentiation has to be something more unique and specific to the individual or the group of individuals moving forward.
I think it's a combination of what you and Katy just said, Stuart, because Katy, you're 100% right. If people don't feel something, they won't do anything, right? And so I think you're spot on with that. The problem is there are other destinations who can invoke the same emotions, and then you run into the same feature comparison. I think that you get with a lot of homogenous campaigns. I think the differentiator is your unique experiences that can't happen somewhere else, tied to emotion. And if you can connect those two things, the uniqueness of your destination, the things that you have that no one else has, and leverage that to invoke an emotion, you're going to inspire action. I think that's kind of the critical combination.
So what you just did, Adam, beautifully, and whether you knew this or not, is bring us right back to that topic of gentrification. Because if somebody is not paying attention to preserving those unique things about my destination, then pretty soon those unique things are going to be gone, and the DMO marketer on the other end is going to be left saying, I don't really have a unique story to tell, right? So like that's where that loop gets closed between destination gentrification and destination marketing gentrification, that those two have to be working together so that the marketing person is like forcing the urban planners, the elected leaders, et cetera, to preserve those things, to provide grants to local businesses as opposed to just simply accepting the latest, Chick-fil-A to come in or whatever, right? Like, how do you preserve those things? And what's the DMO's role in doing that? Again, in order to create a sustainable experience that doesn't just end when somebody realizes it's just become strip malls and fast food places.
Yeah, and I think the challenge of that is like often that's not the jurisdiction of the DMO in the current
Oh,
structure
for
within a
sure.
market, right?
For
Is
sure.
economic development is usually separate organization
Yep.
or part of your entity, but separate team, right? And I
Yes.
think one of the things I'm beginning to realize over the last few episodes we talked is I think the DMO role is probably more stewardship than it is anything else. And I think it's more about understanding the holistic, like every factor that contributes to a healthy tourism economy, in whether we're the lead on it or we're owning it or whatever, we're making sure it's all getting done in the right way, right? So we have to be more collaborative with
Yep.
our economic development and with our chambers of commerce and
Yes.
with our
Yes.
counties and our cities. So our role is to really be a convener and a collaborator and a leader in the sense of educating the rest of the community on why these things are important and why we should consider the bigger long-term impact of these decisions we make. Because some of the economic development is just looking at, hey, we just got this new business in and we're super happy. Like I'll give you a great example. Right here right now in our area, there's been a lot of economic development focus on things like distribution centers in manufacturing, and they're great, right? They help us diversify our economy, but they also have a not anticipated impact on the tourism economy because the types of jobs that they're creating are similar in terms of scale, price scale, and wages as the tourism industry. So it actually puts an additional strain on our workforce problem on the tourism economy. So
Mhm.
I think just having a seat at the table with these conversations and being a part of it, that's I think what the stewardship piece is for DMOs.
Yeah. I mean, I have the benefit throughout the course of my career of not just working in tourism, but working in beverages and banking and sporting goods and cable and technology. Like I've spanned and what you're describing, Stuart, is the exact same problem that each one of those industries has faced over the years when a product developer is going out and developing a product, not talking to the marketing person. But when the
Mhm.
product is developed, going to the marketing person, here you go. And the marketing person is left going, who is this for? Like, I have no idea. What's the story behind it? Right.
Mhm.
So, what you're advocating for, I think, is exactly right. For those storytellers to be at those tables, for those conversations to be taking place, and not just simply say, oh, I'll tell the story now, but to be able to help guide the story, right? To be
Yeah.
able to help, again, preserve some of those local, unique businesses, as opposed to just allow everyone to come in and now all of a sudden I'm forced to tell the story that everyone else is telling the same story, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back a little bit to one of the things you said about the outside perspectives. Like to me, this is a wish for me and a plea to the folks in that industry that are putting on the events.
Yep, agreed.
Stop bringing DMO vendors there. I get it's the part of the funding model, but we got to rethink that. Like
Yep,
I think
agreed.
as a DMO, I would pay more to attend an event that had outside vendors talking from the stage. I mean, I'll have my time with the vendors to talk to them about selling me their stuff, but I think we can learn a lot more from outside the industry right now than we can from inside the industry. So if
Agreed.
there was an event for DMOs, but primarily out of industry folks talking, I think I would be there tomorrow.
Mhm.
I love that.
I would also urge Stuart, and this is a great platform on which to do it. I would urge folks within the DMO world to attend conferences that are outside
Yeah,
DMO conferences, you know?
agreed. Yeah, yeah. A lot of these problems, like you said, are universal and have been solved.
They really
DMO
are.
world's 5 years behind the rest of the
Yeah.
world in a
Yeah,
lot
at
of
least.
areas,
Absolutely. At
at
least, for
least,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can leave a lot. Well, we're getting a little low on time. I definitely think we're almost teasing your next episode, Matt, here when we're just sort of talking about the role of the DMO and
hmm
stuff. But
hmm
I'm gonna go around real quick, like final thoughts and anything we can make that's tangible for our audience to sort of take from this conversation or call to arms, if you will, from each of you. So, Matt, we'll start with you if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, you talked a minute ago about sort of the retrenching to some extent that you're experiencing as maybe
Hmm.
the broader economy or the visitor economy slows down a little bit. I'm going to jump in and say I completely agree with Adam that if I fall back on that expression, fortune favors the bold, it is
Hmm.
those people who are going to step into that space who are willing to risk both with just purely a financial investment to the extent that is possible, but also with a story investment that are going to reap the benefit of that. That you're getting people right now, fewer people who might be wanting to travel, but more people who want really genuine, unique, authentic experiences. Get out there and tell that story now, and you're going to benefit because those people then will keep coming back.
Yeah, great. Katie?
Yeah. I think the easiest way to avoid boring or gentrification, as we've been talking about in destination marketing, is to really have a clear, distinct point of view. Do the research, dig deep, find out who you are. What do you stand for? What do you mean as a destination? And also tie that to Adam's point to what's real. It has to be rooted in real, authentic experiences that you can have. A beautiful nostalgic ad with a parent holding their child's hand, wonderful. But how does that connect directly to the experiences you can have in this destination? So focus on those edges. Focus on those outliers of your destination, the pieces that aren't sanded off, that kind of stick out like an uncut gem. What are those facets that really make you different? Connect that to some emotional marketing and you're going to win.
Great advice. Adam?
Um, I I think our industry's obsession with job security is a complete fallacy. And I know some of the people who have taken the biggest risks that I've seen in the space that actually did get hurt by the risk that they took. always landed in a better place than they were before. And you actually can learn if you have a supportive stakeholder group or board by taking risks. Because if you get crucified for taking a risk, you should not stay at that organization anyway. And so I've got a good friend who, she took a risk in her destination and built one of the coolest owned media assets I've ever seen in a destination.
She sure did. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And shortly after was let go by the leadership in her destination, and she is now running the tourism division of a prominent agency in our space, and she's happier than she's ever been. So stop worrying about job security and do the right thing. And if your board or stakeholders or elected leaders or officials or whatever don't appreciate it, that's a them problem, and you're going to have a great portfolio piece to go get a better job.
Are you saying you're going to hire them? Is that what you're saying?
I just might.
Yeah. That might not incentivize people. Who knows?
Now everybody's going to play it safe.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, to cushion that a little bit, I'll say most of our problems are self-induced, but they're also the reality of the environment that we find ourselves in, right? And I'm a big believer in controlling what you can control and influencing what you can influence. And I think one of the things you should be focused on right now is your relationship with stakeholders, whether that be your businesses, because we got to find out what's unique about them and what matters to them and what stories we can tell, right? Because I think it is that granular. You got to tell individualized business stories and people stories. We got to really double down on our relationship with our board, make sure that there's trust there, make sure that they understand what we're doing, but also we understand what matters to them. What are the KPIs that define success? If you can't agree with your board, what does success look like 12 months from now? Then you're setting yourselves up for misery down the line on both sides and probably running yourself out of the job. Same with your elected officials, same with your residents. Like, you got to be in constant communication with all of these stakeholders, and then especially the other organizations in your community that are influencing the outcome of tourism. Think the economic development folks, the downtown placemaking folks, even your associations of realtors, others, chambers of commerce in your region, other DMOs in your region, have really good team spirit with them. And I think you're going to be a lot more successful in the long run. So this is great, guys. I like this conversation. It challenges us to be better tomorrow than we were today. So thank you. Katy,
Thanks, guys, for having us.
Katy, if people want to reach out to you, find out more, where can they do that?
Oh, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Katy Livingston. You can also email me at klivingston@maddenmedia.com, and I would love to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Katy. Matt, what about you, sir?
Same deal. LinkedIn, Matt Stiker, and mstiker@maddenmedia.com.
Awesome. Adam, where can they find Mr. Montgomery Stoker?
Katy and Matt, really appreciate you coming on. I love what you guys are doing at Madden. You're doing incredible work. You can find me, Adam, at thebrandrevolt.com on LinkedIn, or of course on Tourism IQ.
Thanks. You can find me at stuart.butler@visitmonobeach.com or on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening. Please leave reviews, all the things. We would love that. Adam, I think next episode we're going to read out a couple of comments. We ran out of time today, but until next time, guys, this has been Destination Discourse.
Thanks, everybody.